Vivian always knew how to command a room. The moment I stepped into the Whittemore room, she was already standing beneath the chandelier like it had been hung for her alone. Guests circled her, laughing too loudly, praising her Milan partnership, admiring the oversized diamond her fiancé Everett had slipped on her finger. My entrance, by comparison, barely stirred the air. "Cleo," Vivian said, her smile sharp as glass. "You made it. I told them you might be late. Office paperwork and all that." A few guests glanced my way with polite confusion, trying to reconcile Vivian's tone with my presence. I took the empty seat beside her, the one that felt more like an afterthought. Mother leaned in. "You really should try something more ambitious." "Darling, clerical work is so safe." She reached for her champagne, her pearls shifting like they agreed with her. Everett sat across from me, watching, not with pity or amusement, just curiosity. He seemed to see something the others missed, but he didn't voice it. Not yet. Dinner began. Conversation turned, as it always did, toward accomplishments. Father spoke about a new exhibit he was funding. Mother mentioned a gallery acquisition she brokered. Vivian practically glowed as she listed her collaborations and industry contacts. Then, as if saving the best humiliation for last, she gestured toward me. "And this is my sister," she said. "Cleo keeps things organized downtown. Files, forms, little tasks like that. She has always been the practical one." Polite laughter flickered around the table like a draft. I felt the familiar heat crawl up my neck, but I kept my face still. This was the role they had written for me long ago, a script I no longer accepted but still performed out of habit. Everett finally spoke, cutting through the amusement. "Cleo," he said, "what do you actually do?" The table quieted instantly. Vivian huffed a soft laugh. "Everett, she just told you. She does administrative work." He ignored her. His eyes stayed on me. I set my fork down carefully. "Strategy acquisition," I said. No one moved. No one breathed. And in that stillness, I felt the first crack forming in the story they had built about me. If you have ever lived a life people misunderstood, stay with me. Stories like ours matter, and your voice deserves space alongside mine. The silence after I spoke did not feel accidental. It felt weighted, as if every person at that table was trying to decide whether they had misheard me or whether I had forgotten the role they expected me to play. Vivian recovered first. "Strategy acquisition," she repeated, her laugh fluttery and brittle. "Cleo, sweetheart, that is just a fancy way of saying you help with paperwork. Do not confuse everyone." Mother nodded, relieved to have something familiar to cling to. "Exactly. Your sister has always been imaginative with titles. It is sweet, in a way." I kept my hands folded in my lap. "It is not imaginative," I said quietly. Everett leaned forward. "Then explain it," he said. His tone wasn't confrontational. It was steady, grounded, almost protective. Vivian's eyes snapped toward him. "Everett, please." "She does not need to elaborate. This is my engagement dinner. It is a simple question," he replied. "I would like to understand." Father cleared his throat. "Cleo has always been helpful with administrative tasks. There is no need to overcomplicate things." The heat in my chest tightened, but outwardly I stayed calm. "Father," I said, "I have not done administrative tasks for over 5 years." Vivian folded her arms. "Then what exactly have you been doing? Because every time I call, you are updating a document or reviewing something. That is clerical. That is what you assumed." I replied. A pulse of discomfort moved across the table. Everett's father, Jonathan Keats, quiet until now, tilted his head slightly, studying me the way men in finance study people who might be hiding leverage. Vivian's irritation sharpened. "Cleo, you are making this awkward." "No," Jonathan said softly. "She is clarifying." Vivian shot him a look, half insulted, half startled. She had not expected anyone to take my side. I met Jonathan's gaze for a brief second. He seemed to recognize something: discipline, restraint, maybe even the language of someone who spent years navigating rooms far more cutthroat than this one. Strategy acquisition, he repeated, tasting the words with interest. Before I could speak, Vivian cut in again. Honestly, Cleo, you should be grateful we even highlight your job. Not everyone has a career worth mentioning. I felt the sting, sharp and old, but not deep enough to reach where it used to hurt. This time, I did not shrink. The table resumed a polite buzz of conversation, but it felt thin, stretched over something raw. Vivian turned her smile back on the guests as if nothing had happened. I let my eyes drop to my plate, and without meaning to, my mind slipped backward into the places where all of this had begun. I remembered the morning Vivian borrowed my car. She had arrived 40 minutes late, tossing the keys into my hand like they were an inconvenience. "Your old Volvo really struggles uphill," she said, laughing. "But it fits the whole modest vibe you have going." Coffee stains covered the passenger seat. The tank was nearly empty. I had sprinted into the city to make my meeting and walked in 2 minutes before presenting. That pitch brought in $38 million in early-stage funding. Vivian never asked how it went. That night, she posted a photo from her shoot, tagging me with the caption, "My sister saved my life today. Nothing about the cost. Nothing about mine." Another memory rose, uninvited. A Christmas morning. The tree lit and our parents beaming as they handed Vivian a velvet box. Inside was a Cartier bracelet, for our brightest star. Mother had said, my gift was a productivity planner. Vivian laughed as I opened it. "This is perfect," she said loudly. "Cleo's personality is basically a calendar." She turned to our cousins. "That is what happens when your whole life is paperwork." They had laughed. Everyone had. No one noticed my fingers tracing the pages, the same planner where I kept the earliest sketches for what would one day become Marston Vale Capital's acquisition framework. There was the night she called me at 1:55 in the morning. "Cleo, I need you to fix my portfolio summary." She had slurred. "You're good with that office stuff." I told her I had a committee review at 8. She hung up on me. I stayed awake until 4, making her summary flawless. At 8:30 that morning, I stood before the investment committee at Blackbridge Capital and outlined a strategy that would later anchor our first major partnership. Vivian texted afternoon. "Fix the formatting next time." It looked cramped. And then there was the smaller, quieter cruelty, the kind people never found remarkable. At a family dinner last spring, my assistant called to confirm a virtual session with the Singapore strategy team. I stepped outside to answer. When I returned, Mother sighed dramatically. "Cleo, you must learn boundaries. If they truly need you so urgently, perhaps you are not as organized as you think." I said nothing. None of them knew that the deal under negotiation involved $900 million in international assets. To them, I was the sister who was always too busy for trivial things. To them, that meant unimportant. Back at the dinner table in the Whittemore room, Vivian let out a high, bright laugh, the same one she always used to cover discomfort. Everett glanced at me again, thoughtful. Jonathan Keats narrowed his eyes slightly, as if matching these pieces to something he already suspected. Vivian reached for her wine. "Cleo tends to exaggerate," she said lightly. "It is endearing, in its way." I kept my voice steady. "I never exaggerate. This time," she blinked. It was small, but I saw it, the fracture. The moment her certainty faltered. Vivian's laugh still echoed faintly in my mind when the memory shifted again, this time to the night before her engagement dinner. It was late, close to 10, when I walked into my apartment and found my closet door open. My emerald dress, the one I had planned to wear, was gone. I called her immediately. "Oh, relax," Vivian said when she finally answered. "I borrowed it. I needed something elegant for my pre-party photos. You were not home." So I helped myself. You could have asked. You were always so sensitive. She replied, Anyway, I will bring it back tomorrow. She hung up before I could say anything else. The next afternoon, she appeared at my door holding the dress draped over one arm. A dark smudge stained the sleeve, and the zipper was half broken. It still looks fine, she said, brushing past me. And honestly, Cleo, no one notices what you wear. I notice, I said quietly. Vivian shrugged, amused. Then buy something new. She saw the navy dress hanging behind me and smiled. Wear that. It's more you. More forgettable. More invisible. She did not need to say it. That night, while I repaired the zipper with shaking hands, my phone vibrated on the table. A message from Serafina Vale illuminated the screen. Singapore team approved revisions. North Star is almost there. Be ready for the next phase. I felt the tension settle in my chest, part anticipation, part exhaustion. For years, I had kept my work sealed away from my family, hidden behind their assumptions. Not because I feared their judgment, but because I knew the moment they learned the truth, everything would change. At 1:59 in the morning, as I was finalizing documents for the next day's strategy call, my phone rang again. Vivian. Her voice was syrupy, unfocused. Cleo, I need you to fix my media pitch. I want it perfect for tomorrow. I have work at 7. I said, Oh, please. Your tasks can wait. This is my opportunity. I rubbed my eyes. Vivian, I cannot. Her tone snapped sharp. You never support me. I stared at the glowing spreadsheets on my screen. I have supported you for years. She scoffed. You owe me this. But I did not. And for the first time, I let her voice fade into the silence. At 7 that morning, I led a call preparing the final architecture for a $3.1 billion acquisition. And when I arrived at the engagement dinner that evening in my navy dress, I knew something inside me had shifted. Vivian was listing potential venues in Amalfi when Jonathan Keats lifted his glass and spoke in a tone that quieted the entire table. Cleo, he said, your office is on Park Avenue. Is it not? Floor 47? Vivian's smile faltered. Jonathan, that seems oddly specific for someone in clerical work. Father chuckled uneasily. It is a shared workspace. I believe. It is not shared, Jonathan replied, eyes still on me. That floor is leased to private investment groups. The air tightened. Vivian let out a brittle laugh. Jonathan, please. Cleo works in an administrative department downtown. She told us that herself. No, I said calmly. You told yourselves that. Mother straightened, her discomfort sharpening her voice. Cleo, darling, we never assumed anything. You simply never clarified. I let her words pass without reaction. You never asked. Vivian shook her head, waving away the tension. This is ridiculous. Cleo updates spreadsheets. She answers calls. She color codes calendars. She does not lease floors on Park Avenue. Jonathan pressed, gentle but deliberate. Cleo, who do you report to? I met his eyes. I do not report to anyone. A momentary stillness spread across the table, uncertain, shifting, unstable. Vivian broke it with a shrill laugh. Oh, come on. Everyone reports to someone. Everett leaned forward. Not always, he murmured. His father acknowledged him with a slow nod. Vivian glared at Everett. She is playing with words. She always has. I felt her frustration rising, a frantic need to drag me back into the shape she understood. All her life, she had been the leading act, and I had been the shadow. Jonathan's voice cut cleanly through her anger. Your last name is Marston, he said, as in Marston Vale. Vivian blinked. Confused. What is Marston Vale? Jonathan did not look away from me. A private investment consortium. Boutique firm. Impressive growth these past few years. Everett's expression shifted, slow recognition forming behind his eyes. Vivian laughed again, but it came out wrong, strained. Cleo, please. She could not possibly be involved in anything like that. I did not speak. I did not need to. Jonathan studied my silence the way a strategist studies a tell, and the slightest smile touched his mouth. I see, he said softly. Vivian's voice sharpened. See what? That perhaps, Jonathan answered. We have misunderstood the quiet one at this table. Vivian stared at him, then at me, confusion cracking into something harder. Fear, maybe, fear of losing control. Mother placed a hand on her chest. Cleo, what is he talking about? She whispered. I held her gaze, steady and unhurried. The truth was close now, closer than it had ever been, and for the first time. I did not feel the need to look away. The room sensed it too. The shift, the imbalance, the unraveling, the moment before revelation. Jonathan set his glass down with a soft click that seemed louder than it should have been. Cleo, he said, forgive my persistence. But I have to ask directly now. Are you with North Star Holdings? The name landed heavily on the table. Everett's head turned sharply. A few of the guests exchanged confused glances. Vivian frowned, already annoyed she was no longer the center of the conversation. North Star, what she asked. Is that another one of those tedious little companies you read about in the financial pages? Everett spoke before his father could. North Star is not little. Vivian. She waved her hand. Dismissive. If it is not in Fashion Week, I do not care. Jonathan waited, his attention still fixed on me. Well, he asked quietly. I could feel my heartbeat, steady and slow, as if my body knew I had been walking toward this moment for years. No, I said. I am not with North Star Holdings. Vivian's relief was immediate and sharp. She laughed, too loudly. See all this suspense for nothing. Cleo, you really do love dramatic pauses. She files forms. Jonathan, she does not run hedge funds. She never said she did, Jonathan replied. Mother exhaled, shoulders dropping. I told you, she murmured to him. Cleo's job is stable, respectable, but nothing grand. Everett's eyes were still on me. Then what exactly are you? He asked, his voice softer now, almost careful. I let the answer sit in my chest for a second, feeling its weight and its freedom. I am not with North Star, I repeated. Marston Vale Capital led the acquisition. Vivian snorted. And what does that mean? You typed the contracts. No, I said. I structured the deal. She rolled her eyes. You are not making sense. Jonathan's posture changed. Marston Vale led the acquisition. He echoed. So you are internal counsel chief of staff. I held his gaze. I founded Marston Vale. The words moved through the room like a cold wind. No one laughed. No one knew how. Vivian's mouth fell open, then snapped shut, then opened again in disbelief. You founded what she asked, as if the syllables themselves offended her. Marston Vale Capital, I said. It is a private investment consortium. Mother shook her head slowly. That is not possible. Father cleared his throat. Cleo, do not be absurd. You work in administration. You have always worked in administration. You assumed I did. I said. I never corrected you. Vivian leaned forward, eyes bright with anger. You are lying to impress people, she said. On my engagement night. That is pathetic. I reached into my bag and pulled out my second phone. The embargoed press release glowed on the screen. I slid it across the table toward Jonathan. You can read it, I said. You will receive the same announcement through your channels tomorrow. He picked up the phone, eyes scanning the text. The silence around us grew taut. Everett stole a glance over his father's shoulder, and his expression shifted as he read my name. 3.1 billion, Jonathan read aloud quietly. North Star Acquisition. Lead entity Marston Vale Capital. Founder and Managing Director Cleo Marston. The room seemed to tilt. Vivian went pale. "That is not funny," she whispered. Mother's hand trembled against her glass. "Cleo," she said, my name sounding unfamiliar on her tongue. "What is he reading?" Everett looked up, stunned. "This is real," he said. "I saw rumors about this deal last quarter. No one knew who was behind it." Father stared at me like I was a stranger who had sat down in his daughter's chair. "You own this company?" he asked. "I built it," I replied. Owning is messy in my line of work. Jonathan set the phone down gently. His voice, when it came, held a note of reluctant admiration. "Marston Vale is not a small operation," he said. "Your team manages what now, 7 or 8 billion in assets. 7.6. I answered. Vivian's chair scraped against the floor. "You are telling me," she said slowly, "that while I have been begging brands to notice me, you have been, what, buying them?" "It is not that simple," I said. "But yes, sometimes." Mother pressed her fingertips to her forehead. "Why would you hide this from us?" she whispered. "Why keep something like this a secret? You were not listening when I was small." I said, "I stopped offering pieces of myself you did not want." Father frowned. "We always wanted the best for you. You wanted the version of me that fit beside her," I said, nodding toward Vivian. "The quiet, helpful shadow." Vivian's voice cracked. "You made me look like a fool. I did nothing tonight that you have not done to me for years," I said softly. "The only difference is that now other people can see it." Jonathan spoke into the quiet. "We have been trying to get a meeting with Marston Vale for 6 months. I gave him a small, measured smile. "You could have called my personal line." Everett let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Except there was no joy in it, only disbelief and something like respect. Around us, the guests shifted, recalibrating, their eyes flicking from Vivian's ring to my face and back again. The balance that had kept this family in its familiar orbit was gone. For the first time, I was not orbiting anyone. The table had stopped pretending to breathe. Conversations that once floated effortlessly around Vivian now clung stubbornly to silence. Forks rested untouched. Glasses remained suspended halfway to lips. It was as if the entire room was waiting to see what shape the world would take next. Vivian was the first to move. She stood abruptly, her chair trembling behind her. "You blindsided me," she said, voice sharp but unsteady. "You chose tonight of all nights to humiliate me. I did not choose anything." I replied, "You created the stage. I simply stopped acting." Mother pressed her hand to her chest. "Cleo, this is cruel. You should have trusted us with this part of your life." I tried. I said, "Years ago. You preferred the version of me that stayed quiet." Father leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "You are speaking as though we failed you." "You did not fail me," I said, keeping my tone even. "You dismissed me." Vivian shook her head, her breath quick and shallow. "You are trying to rewrite history. You were never this person you are pretending to be." Jonathan spoke gently. "Vivian, she is not pretending." She snapped toward him. "You do not know her. I know the numbers," he said. "And I know competence when I see it." Everett finally rose from his seat. "Viv," he murmured. "Maybe we should just do not defend her," she hissed. "Not tonight." He hesitated, looking between us, torn. Mother's voice broke. "Cleo, please understand. We celebrated Vivian because she let us in." "You never did." "I stopped letting you in," I said, "because you only saw me when I was useful." Father looked pained. "We thought we were encouraging you." "No," I said. "You were measuring me against her." Vivian's eyes reddened. So this is revenge. It is not revenge, I said quietly. It is visibility. Everett stepped closer to her. Viv, maybe you should listen. She stared at him as though she did not recognize him. You think she deserves this attention more than I do? I think she deserves honesty, he said. Her voice cracked. And what about me? I met her gaze. You deserved honesty too, but you never wanted the truth. You wanted the story where you were always the star. Vivian trembled. You took everything tonight. I took nothing. I said, you still have your engagement, your celebration, your future. The only thing that changed is that now you know who is sitting at your table. She lowered her eyes, the fight draining out of her. Jonathan cleared his throat softly. Ms. Marston, he said. If you are open to discussing opportunities, Vivian let out a small, broken sound. I didn't answer Jonathan. Not yet. My voice belonged somewhere else in that moment. Vivian, I said gently, your night is not ruined. It is simply honest now. She looked away, shoulders trembling, and for the first time all evening, she said nothing. The silence that followed was not cruel. It was truth settling where it had never been allowed to live before. When the dinner finally ended, everyone moved toward the front of the Whittemore room with the uneasy shuffle of people whose conversations had shifted shape too quickly. The valet attendants waited outside, lined in a neat row. Vivian stood slightly apart from the crowd, arms wrapped tightly around herself. I walked past her, intending to leave quietly, but she reached out and grabbed my wrist. Cleo, she whispered, you cannot just walk away. I turned to her. Her eyes were still glossy from earlier, her voice trembling with something between anger and panic. You made me look small tonight, she said. Everyone saw it. Everett's family saw it. You could have told us before any of this. I did not do anything to you. I replied. I told the truth when someone finally asked. You humiliated me, she said, pulling in a shaky breath. You took the entire room from me. My engagement dinner, Cleo. My moment. You always believed it was your moment, I said softly. Every room, every gathering, every holiday you stood in the center because you needed to, and you needed me to stay behind you. That is not fair, she said, her jaw tightening. You think I wanted to overshadow you. You needed to, I repeated, not unkindly. She let my wrist go. If you had told me who you were, I would have celebrated you. I held her gaze. You celebrated the version of me that stayed small. Vivian swallowed hard. Then let me try now. At the wedding, I want you beside me. I want to tell everyone that my sister is what did Jonathan call you, competent extraordinary. Whatever it was, you should be seen for it. I will not be here for the wedding, I said. Her expression crumpled. You cannot skip it. I have a board meeting in Tokyo that week, I said. Strategy work we have been preparing for months. You are choosing work over me again, she whispered. I am choosing honesty, I said. Tonight changed things. Viv, you wanted the truth. Now it is here. She looked away, blinking quickly. Everett's father wants to talk to you again, she murmured. He said you should call him. He asked me to tell you. Do you know how that feels? I let her question dissolve between us. Some answers would never soothe her, no matter how they were delivered. A black Lincoln pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out and opened the door. Vivian spoke again, quieter this time. I do not know how to exist beside you now. You do not have to. I said, you only have to exist beside yourself. She flinched at the words but did not argue. I stepped into the car. Through the window, I saw her standing alone beneath the golden lights of the portico, glittering, shaken, and no longer the person I had always been told to stand behind. The door shut with a soft, final sound, the driver asked where to. "Home," I said, as we pulled away from the Whittemore room. I exhaled slowly, feeling something settle inside me, not triumph, not regret, but clarity. For years, I had moved quietly so I would not disturb anyone. Tonight, silence had finally spoken for me, and it no longer felt small.